Oh, hello, hello, hello. I have a lot of stuff. Still working on this diorama. You can see, got that little pond there. That stuff has dried up a little bit, but it cracked all over the place. And it's still not like super dry. Some things are a little wiggly. So I got a fan on behind me. I actually was running a very cheap uh, V light over it, hoping that would help overnight. But I think I just glopped in too much stuff in the first try. I don't think it'll be a huge deal because it's going to get a layer or two on top of it. Additionally, but my little skelly guy's in there, which is good. Um, so I'm going to set this thing aside so that it can sit in front of the fan. All these little, this room is covered with little bits of foam at this point. But I have a ton of props. So I'm going to set this guy aside in front of the fan for a bit. Hopefully this pond will dry enough so that I can work on the entire rest of it. And then the very last thing that I'll do will be adding more layers of water in. So hopefully this is just to the point where it's cool. I should probably glue this thing down while I'm at it, as long as I'm here. Yes. Halloween. Happy Halloween, folks. I feel pretty confident that I'm in theme. Just gonna hit this guy like that. Just slam him down. And then this guy can go into hibernation. I'm not too worried about the seams on the edge of this. This is pretty much going to get glued and then flocked with grass. So we'll get to that in a bit. But I'll just move this away right now. Show you all the little bits that I have. Very precarious beat up fan. So this was the original crypt. I'm actually going to zoom this in now that I don't have that whole thing in this shot. There we go. So this is neat, and I might still go with it. But I decided to build one out of craft board rather than this foam, just so I could get something a little bit more symmetrical. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit longer. But this guy actually came together pretty decently with some glue and some green stuff. It's obviously got seams all over the place. And I think what I'm going to do is use a very thin coat, and I still may chuck this guy and go with this guy instead. But I think I'm going to use a very thin coat of gray basing material over the whole thing, which will give it like a stoneworky kind of look to it, especially if I divot it to look that way. I've got a couple of Necron weapons, and I think I have 2 heads lying around. I might be down to 1, but I can. Where did it go? Yep, there it is. Everything's so tiny. We're gonna have a couple little Necron arms. Thanks, Dane, for the recommendation. Creeping out of crypt, not the crypt, the blah, 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 blah. Little grave site. Yeah, there's the other head. Doink. So I can have a head coming out of the dirt and the arm sort of clawing its way out, which will be neat. So I gotta base those guys. Yeah, well they're based, but I gotta make them metallic. And then I have some little bits that I did. Tombstones, as much as some of them are kind of gray, that's just primer on them. Some of them not so much. I'm going to give these a coat of a gray paint and then wash them. I did hit them with some amount of divots and stuff to make them cracked. Another one. Boop. And then I have a pile of plants, a bunch of mushrooms, and these plants have little floral bits on them, so I've got some coloring to do. I think I can probably leave this tray aside. So I am just going to get to it. The first thing I'm going to do, I think, is going to hit this guy with some material because he'll need a while to dry. Pop open my wet palette over here and get down to business. Happy, happy Halloween. Scooch that stuff back. There's my gray for the tombstones. I need to find my gray for stonework. If I don't have gray, I'll do something else and paint it gray. Pardon me for just a moment while I go through all the junk. There we go. What I have is astro granite, which I don't know how easily this stuff shakes, but it does have a pretty solid stoneworky vibe to it. There are my tools. Dead Blood Angel. He's good. He's sunk in. He's sunk in. He looks pretty good. He's gonna get a little bit more glop on his legs as I fill in layers. They do. So one of the things I am pondering is it would be super easy if I used this guy because I would just paint the doorway and have the head and the gun sort of coming out, or he could be coming out the side of the wall. With this thing, I might put something inside so you got the sort of glow of the eyes, but if it's angled the right way, I could actually have someone coming straight out the side of the wall. We'll see how that goes. We will see how that goes. This stuff is weird. So thankfully with this stuff, I could just stir the daylights out of it. There we go. Ugh. Absolutely gross. I love it. This stuff is neat. And it does need a good stir. The basing stuff, it's super gloppy. Basically like pre-mixed cement. And if you don't close the cap very tight, and even the stuff that's just up around the edge, over time just dries out. Alright, so you can see that on the edge here. It's a gray, but it's got a decent amount of black dye in it. You can actually, it's got black pigment. You can see I've got some on the tip here. How separated it is. I'll just keep stirring for a minute here. And yeah. So let's get down to it. My marginal at best fitting skills did leave gaps. But this stuff should, in theory, and I don't have a ton of use for it because I've only got this one tiny little pot of it. It's one of the first pots that I got of anything. I think this might have been the very first trip to the store I ended up getting astro granite because I didn't know any better. Not that it's bad. It's not bad. But I had no idea what basing really was. And a gray, at this point, like I need to pick up more of this because gray is actually really good. That's a very neutral base thing that you're gonna add. So watch, I'm gonna actually just like smear some of this across the whole thing. Gray's not bad now that I've worked with several colors because you can turn gray into just about anything. It's light, so you're not like committed to a dark color. And I don't have to really legit cover this thing entirely. Now it looks like stonework. Yeah, so it's definitely gonna get, you're right on point, buddy. It's absolutely gonna get a dry brush after all this is done. And, I mean, essentially I'm just legit cementing, doing drywall work. Just cementing in all the weird cracks and crevices and weird spots. Anywho, which is good. Am I going to have enough of this stuff? That's the question. If I do need to change to a different color, I can do that, but then that leaves me doing a little bit of painting. Which wouldn't be the worst thing, but just stucco in that across. Picking up any excess. This is where things are going to start getting dirty. So you can see this is a pretty massive seam at the roof. I had to angle cut this stuff in an attempt to get it to fit the right way, which I did, but like, man, it was imprecise work. So this stuff, we'll just fill it all in. Yeah, it was a pretty good theory, but it was a pretty strong commit too. It does look pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, and I did not know that ahead of time. But yeah, not the worst of my plans I've ever come up with. Some of that due to the fact, like, if I had actually cut this a lot better, I might not have even tried this. I'm not saying that, like, in fact, I kind of loathe it when people are like, I made a terrible mistake, but I'm smarter for it. Well, that's fine. It's good to learn from your mistakes. My point, though, is that, like, sometimes mistakes are good, but I didn't intend for this mistake to turn out good. Yeah, someone's going to be ordering some more Astro Granite. The reason I'm doing this first is obviously this thing's going to need to dry a bit. But yeah, let's try to see if I can keep this in the shot for you guys. There's a lot to manage here. My glasses are sliding down my face. I don't want to get Astro Granite on them. Hands are getting dirty. I don't want to put any thumbprints on this thing. But yeah, this is basically just, you know, joint compound, drywalling, whatever you want to call it, masonry. It is kind of funny how when you do masonry, it looks like masonry. And it also sheds light if you live at a pretty beat up flat, just how nice you can make it look. Your landlord can make it look just by covering it up with a bunch of stuff. Not that I'm jaded, but I'm a little jaded. Alrighty. Just glop some in there. Get across this whole edge. I'm building a little house. By little. So I think, keep this in the shot for you guys. I do have to get better at streaming. You did almost certainly note when, like, I either get nervous or excited. Everything I'm modeling falls out of the shot. All right, so towel. I think I have to wait till this all dries before I hit the front and back of it, because I've run out of places that I can actually grab. But if I'm careful, which I rarely am, see now, it's all kind of slatey looking, mausoleum-y, not intentionally imperfect, though I could have handled the imperfections just fine even if I was trying. I'm going to lay this guy down in the front of the fan also, and this is super thin. So there's actually the possibility that I can dry brush this guy on this stream. It's not a big, hefty pile. So I'll put that by the fan as well. Victory. Okay, I'm going to close this guy up, save him. Now I've got some tombstones, and it's convenient that they're primed to almost kind of sort of ish be gray, but they're not really gray. So I gotta hit these guys up with a base coat and then set them aside. We have Mechanicum Standard Gray, which I'm gonna water down quite a bit because this stuff looks plasticky. And it'll be fine if I need to hit them with a little bit of that Astro Granite, I can do that, but I won't do a ton of it. Just water this down my wet palette a bunch. I just want to get to the point where I have a reasonably consistent color on them. Let's just soak this brush up a little bit. Alrighty. Hopefully that's thin enough. A lot of what I got to hit is like these sides that are super foamy, just so some amount of paint sticks in. And I'm going to leave the bottom, so I'll just leave them standing up over here. I really didn't think this through. My hands are just going to get covered in paint. That's just the way that's going to go. It doesn't matter as much on the sides because it's all foamy there. Try to grab this by the corners. So I hope everyone is excited for Halloween. I know that I am. Do need to make one last trip to the grocery store just to make sure we have enough candy because we get an obscene amount of kids in my neighborhood. Absolute crazy amount. All right, that looks all right. So yeah, just grain these guys up. Nothing insane about it. Leave them standing up over here. Those will get quite the dry brushing. And they'll definitely get a wash. You can see I've got some amount of like crack taken out of it. Little cracks going through it. I hit these with a black wash. It should, I hope. Pretty good. You'll also notice that there's like a bunch of extra color on the backs of these. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I'll just do the fronts and backs. Thank you. There's a bunch of color on these because basically I use this same craft board for dry brushing. And those things get spent eventually, so I basically just grabbed the ones that I'd already used, hit those up. So some of them may need a couple of coats on the side that has formerly dry brush color on it. Let's get in there. I don't know why I closed this up. I do need a little bit more of it. I need quite a bit more of it. And I don't try to reuse absolutely everything, but if there's something sitting right in front of me that's like an easy win, I always try to go for that. There we go. It's a little thick. Take that down a bit. Just dab a little bit of my wet stuff here. There we go. Set that guy aside. So I think I have 8. Yep, I got 8 tombstones. These I'll set in. I'll use some brown basing material. As dirt mounted up in classic Halloween style. Yeah, the foam ones definitely have better texture on them. That is 100% the truth. Some of these are foam, some of these are craft board. But I struggled cutting the foam thinner. I think I just need to buy a plate of thinner foam. But we'll get there, little by little. Have a better heat cutter showing up today or tomorrow. exciting. I want to be able to cut a little bit more accurately. It's really interesting to me, all the texture that you get out of XPS foam. And I need to experiment a lot more with it. I think what I want to learn to do is just get really good at making little props like this, which clearly I'm not very good at right now yet. But like that, crazy amount of texture in it. And that's mostly just from making mistakes. But man, if I could do it deliberately, that would be nice. It does look like stonework. And some of it is a matter of going through it with the heating element, as opposed to with blade. Like the natural meltiness that you get when you heat saw through it. Oh, stand up, buddy. Come on. There we go. Like this, perfectly flat, because that's craft board. Just quickly check when my phone is blowing up. Still have time for this. Boop. Oh, all right. Oh, whatever. Always stuff to do. A couple more of these guys, and now we'll move on to mushrooms after this, which should be fun because that'll just be a pile of different colors and washes. It will add a lot of brightness to my otherwise dark, gloomy cemetery scene. So the flowers and mushrooms will be nice because I can just sort of plop them in little clusters and keep the scene from getting monotonous. All right, there we go. One last tombstone. This guy's got mad texture on him. He's soaking that paint up. More, gonna dab of water. There we go. All right, so those guys are set. That guy stands up on his own. He does. He does for the win. Try to get some of this gray off of my thumb. There we go. So now, bottle this up. There we go. I did one little mushroom. Good. You can see it's basically all of these have the same. They're just dry brushed, light colored. And what that's going to allow me to do is pick a variety of different pretty colors and make very neat, colorful mushrooms. So I'm just pulling out all the stuff that I almost never use. I might use a little brown. And I've also got some washes. So I can hit these guys with a variety of colors, then some washes. So I guess I'll start with this guy here. All right, that is Bad Moon Yellow. Let's get this out of here now. Let's clean this brush up. Yeah, we're getting lucky over here as far as the weather goes. It's been hella rainy the last couple days, and then it finally cleared up. Finally today it's cleared up. It was precarious, I'll put it that way. So, bright, screaming bright yellow mushroom. Get the stem as well. So right now, they're all just going to get a single color. But as time goes on, they will get a wash afterwards, and that'll give them a little bit more variance. There's all kinds of crenellations on these guys. I'm sorry, buddy. It sucks. It really does suck when it rains on Halloween. Especially because like everyone's in costumes and it's very, it's cosplay. A lot of times those costumes have very precarious things on them that really don't react that well to being rained on. Yeah, so the neat thing is, yellow mushroom, certainly weird. Oop, but we're dipping into the fantastic a little bit here. And part of this, though, is that this is just the base coat. So depending on what I put over it, it should vary quite a bit. But we'll see how that goes. This guy with neolac oxide. We'll have some blue ones, some purple ones, some pinkish purplish ones. But these are very intentionally going to like be extremely deviant colors from the rest of what's going on in my scene, which is going to be pretty grim and dark. Dabbing this in there. The mushrooms are basically one of the few opportunities I have. And I'm not using a ton of them. There may only be like 2 little clusters of mushrooms in different spots. And they're relatively tiny. They should make for little interesting photographic moments. And in some cases, you're taking a picture and your subject, is obviously in the foreground. And based on depth of field, you get a lot of blurriness behind it. And in some cases, it's like you won't even be able to tell these are mushrooms behind them, depending on where I put them. But it'll help the background have a little bit of pop. Because they're there. All right. So I'm all over coating these guys. But it's quite likely that like near the base of them, they'll get hit with a little something like a brown that's a little bit more earthy. Can't tell if that's whatever. We'll just paint the whole thing. They'll get some brown near the bottom, potentially maybe some more white on the actual stem, but they'll still have a little bit of that color underneath. Everything's so tiny. Everything's so tiny. Like, oh, don't sit like that. There you go. Brush up a bit. Is this the one that I want? Yeah. Hit you with some Screamer Pink first. It's a fun color. I'm glad I picked this up. Don't use a lot of it, but it is a great color. I'm thinning the daylights out of this to the point where it's almost thinner than contrast paint because the stuff is super thick, glossy. Oh man, now you're speaking my language. I do love me some Fallout references. Man, I want a new Fallout game so bad. I could taste it. I do have more mushrooms here too. I tried to get into 76, and truth be told, I did play quite a bit of it, but just didn't never really completely attached to it like I did the other Fallout games. Try to do stuff with the camera. So many little mushrooms. Alrighty. Screamer Pink, you are doing your job. Another guy. Green mushrooms? Why not? Let's do a couple of those. Use Hex Wraith on those, which would be a nice callback. Yeah, I absolutely love Fallout. Like, I think Fallout 2? No, I played the original one also. I've played just about any Fallout thing I can get my hands on since the days of yore. And I think when I started, I think it was the same for both Fallout 1 and 2. Part of the reason was I had a Mac. And you could get the games on Mac. They might have actually released first on Mac. I don't remember. I might be making that up in my head. I might be headcanon. But man, those games were just absolute leap forward in terms of dark comedy, great storytelling, and just like great design. Absolutely love them. I put so many hours into Fallout. Fallout and the Elder Scrolls are pretty much my two like take time off of work when you know a new game's coming out. And I played a decent amount of Starfield. Doesn't quite scratch the itch. Doesn't quite, but it's fun. It's just not enough dark humor in it. Which I guess is fine. They shouldn't make every single one of their games, that being Bethesda, identical. But Fallout is like my dark humor altar, and Elder Scrolls at least has some in there that's good. But yeah, I like RPGs like that where you just have a huge amount of choice. Hopefully, some stuff matters. The world feels kind of endless. Let's see. Some of these don't have to be screaming color to start because they'll get some pretty bright washes on them afterwards. So we're going to do a couple little subtle colors. Yeah. There's another game out there. I don't know if it still runs on modern machines, but it's called Fallout Tactics. I think it was after 2, before 3. So it's still in that like 2D isometric thing. It's a crazy amount of fun. It does have a little bit of story to it, but essentially it's all mission based, and it's like a turn-based auto battler. I highly recommend it if you can get it to run on a machine. Um, it's very old, but basically you put together like strike teams, and then what you do is you issue orders over a certain amount of time. You like pre-cook them, and then your units carry those out, and the other units on the other side are doing the same thing. So there's like this element of like pick your moves and then watch them play out. Super interesting. And the story's pretty light in that one, but it does exist. Um, but I played the daylights out of that one. Yeah, I love all of them. One and two are just like straight up 2D isometric old school games, but they still have all of that crazy amount of player choice, customization of your character, play them how you want to play them. I'll hit one more of these guys with this Xandri Dust, which is another workhorse paint I'm finding. I get a lot done with Xandri Dust. Good, nice, neutral tan, but darker than tan. Yeah, it's uh, it's good stuff. The funny thing is, I had this story sort of comes up twice. A buddy of mine that I worked with years ago, like I don't know, well over 10 years ago, was telling me that he moved to DC for a while to be closer to his girlfriend, and he actually like he felt very welcome because one of the Fallout games is in DC, and he like understood kind of how the subway system worked as a result of playing the game before he even got there. He kind of knew where certain areas were, and the same is like anecdotally related. Fallout 4 is like Boston area, um, and man, like I've lived in the Boston area for the last 20 years of my life, um, and I even went to like even more than that because I went to college there for a bit. So I like, man, like so many good feels around the different places and like seeing how they translate real world places into like the Fallout universe. But like I was intimately familiar with almost every single location that they were riffing off of, which was really, really neat. I thought it was absolutely awesome. And like I've lived in towns that were like suburbs um, in the game. I've been to all the places in the Boston area. Um, and then even New Vegas. Um, I've driven out to Vegas several times. Um, Me and my sister used to go pretty regularly, and the drive in is absolutely like all those landmarks and towns are based on real world places. Yeah, well, UK did an amazingly solid job of surviving World War II. If you do the math, you might as well nuke them twice and make sure that they don't have a chance to creep back out. I mean, I'm pretty sure no place is all that great in the Fallout universe, but yeah, UK gets pretty roughed up. I mean, strategically, the UK is like in a not so great spot as far as nukes go. Like everyone and their uncle can nuke them. Like even if you don't have complete like anywhere on a planet capability, you guys are kind of exposed. All right, that's what you get for all that imperialism. Now when we play Risk against you, we just nuke the daylights out of you. Because man, America in the Fallout games is in really amazingly good shape. Let me tell you. All right, I think I got nope. I got another mushroom hide. One last one. Using Death Forest Green as a base for these last few. Yeah, I can play Fallout games pretty Like there's definitely my desert island game. Like if you're stranded on a desert island but you had a computer that could work, you take one game with you. Any of the Fallout games would be fine in my book. It's so replayable. You just like go through the whole thing, pick a new character, go with different stat choices, find new stuff that you didn't find before. Just keep on rocking. All right. So next, I've got these flower thingies. And I think these are all going to just get, well, maybe I'll vary up things a little bit. There's not too many flowers, and there's not a lot of argument for doing a crazy different amount of colors with them. These will either be in or near the pond. So I got to figure out what color I'm going to do with those. I should probably base coat the floral parts in white. I wish I knew what kind of flowers these were. Pretty sure that pod just opens up and the flower comes out the top. So that's the only real part I got to worry about. All right, so what I will do is I'll grab some white, dab some white on the flower parts. The other thing that I will do right now, I'm in rotation, is I'm going to hit the leaves with some green shades, some Beltane green. I would love to see concept art from your RPG. Absolutely. Show and tell, show and tell, show and tell, show and tell. I don't have to get these absolutely covered. The white is just there so that when I color this up on the tips, it has something to ponder. Set you down. You can see that guy. Everything's so tiny. I think I'd be used to that right by now. Everything is so tiny. I lament. Those actually look pretty good with white on them. I might just hit the tips of them with something, like a little flash of color. The white is actually... Oh, my Death Guard business, I forget. That white is a pretty important part of art. Look at those guys. Yeah, they're popping. Excuse me. Man, I need to use white more often. What an idiotic revelation I just had. It's like one of the few colors that like I only ever use as a base coat for anything. I'm always desperately looking for contrast. Like, duh. Maybe white would be a good idea every so often, buddy. I mean, I'm not gonna just paint all my Death Guard guys up in all white by any stretch, but like tiny little pops like this are always learning new stuff or old stuff that I already knew and just having a revelation over it. The power of white. You want something to pop? Put some white on it. There we go. Excitement of tiny flowers. So I want the leaves on these to be much greener than the grass, than these things. Those are nice to be sort of dark. I want these leaves to look jungly. I'm using a pretty strong shade with Beltane green. And I'm just going to give these guys a couple seconds to dry a little bit more because I'm going to be handling them a bunch. And white, as much as I've just raved about how good it is, if you get a little bit on your fingers and you turn the model around, it starts sticking out a lot. Just peek over here. Boop. That's some pretty crazy art. That is amazing stuff. Love it. Absolutely love it. The Brotherhood of Steel emblem is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I love it. All right, let's get these green leaves green. Oh yeah, that's monstrous. I like that. That is good jungly green. You might actually get 2 coats, buddy. Because I dry brushed them before all this. You can see all the sort of veiny bits still popping. That's good. That is good stuff. Backsides of all these guys. It is just screaming green now. That's good. That wash is just going into all those nice recesses. Set this guy down in a second. Take a look at some more of that concept art. That's good stuff, Dean. All right, that can sit. Boop, like that. That guy's amazingly British, and I love him. And the suit is dope. I love the environmental stuff too. Very cool stuff. Yeah, that mayor's awesome. Got an excellent look. I do love universes that are like rich enough where like the stories go well beyond just what's in the original canonical stuff, or like I don't mean stuff that's off canon. I just mean that they just have so much room to add to, like the 40K universe. um they got room to breathe. I guess there's no surprise why I got into 40Ks. Like once I started learning about it, I was like, oh, this has got like endless depth to it. Right up my alley. All right, so you can see here these leaves are like getting this really nice rich green color to them, which is definitely going to make them pop out from the grass. And that wash, that shade is just like hugging all the recesses, but letting the veins of the leaf still pop nicely. Perfect. This is some good jungly green. You know, the temptation to leave these things all white is starting to get strong. I might just hit them, like just the tips with some other color. But I'm liking how they're looking. In fact, I should probably hit these little sprouty things that those come out of. I'm super careful about it. Should be fine. Oh yeah, plants. Happy plants. Makes me want to do a Nurgle's garden diorama at this point. Absolutely overgrown, blighted cycle of life, death and rebirth all happen at the same time chaotically. There we go. Flower. Get this last one. And after this, I could probably start. Well, I know I at least need to dry brush my auxiliary Necron bits, the two heads and the two arms with whatever they are, gauze flares or whatever. It's interesting when you think about the Brotherhood of Steel because like they have all this like super advanced tech, but they're still stuck. Like they're very dependent on their secrecy, but because they've been sort of split, you know, 8 ways to Sunday. Obviously, it's a huge deal in Fallout 4 of like getting any sort of reunification going. It's like a huge deal. So I have all this crazy stuff, but it depends kind of on the chapter that you're in and what you have to deal with and how screwed up the local area is that you're operating out of. I find the Brotherhood of Steel also very interesting because it's like such a human group where they're so powerful individually, but like it's entirely dependent. The like ethos of what a chapter does is entirely dependent on like who's leading it, who's supporting it, all that stuff. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like they're all special snowflakes. All right, so you can see I've got some mushrooms off to the side. Boop. Give these guys a little roll around so they don't dry in place. Those are all base coated. I think after I hit these couple arms with guns, a couple heads, I should be able to go back and hit these mushrooms with a wash. And then they'll be set to rock. All right, what the heck was I using on these guys? That's right. It is Sycorax Bronze. And I am really doing a bunch of different stuff today. Ladies and gentlemen, makeup brush. I've now found that makeup brushes are far superior to any, I mean, any dry brush that I've found from a company that does modeling stuff. And you get a pile of them for an effective price. I need to like sign a deal with Maybelline, or I don't know who actually makes good. I do know who makes good brushes, but because I bought them, but I need a makeup deal. That's my jam. All right, that looks pretty good. This guy's just getting all over dry brush. These guys, hopefully, I can get them to look pretty good, crawling out of the ground, phasing through some stuff. It's really actually super interesting that you get so many extra bits with the Necron Warriors box. They really are quite generous. Kind of like all the extra pox or extra plague marine bits you get off of Poxwalker sprues. There you go, from the combat patrol. All right, shiny gun. Shiny gun the second. One of the things that I didn't realize for a while, and then I saw a video of someone doing it. I was doing it wrong. Is the how much it helps to dampen your dry brush, even though you're dry brushing, dampen it. What I intuitively figured I wanted the brush to be wet at some point because I was struggling so much with dry brushing, but I was just dunking the thing. And really, now that I'm realizing you just need to give it like just make it a little bit damp, man, it's way easier. So much easier to get so much more stuff done. Dry brushing just goes so much more smoothly. So the neat thing is, obviously, that guy's got the post sticking out the back of his head, but that's not going to matter because that post may actually help me when I go to mount that head into something like the dirt or whatever. My chapter's case, if you're under attack, super mutants, it's in squad. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, man. I absolutely adore super mutants. It's just like they're so comical, and they're devastating. Um, but like just the act of taking some fire for someone else, there's just super mutants are just brutal. And sometimes that's all you need is someone in power armor to take some of the heat off. All right, so with those guns done, those skulls at least prepped, going in rotation with the stuff we're doing. Now I'll actually soak that guy. So I have these tombstones, all of these tombstones, and I have a tool with which I can sort of beat them up a little bit. It also, you can use an X-Acto knife as well, which I did to cut some like serious cracks in them. But with one of these guys, just sort of push in a little bit. And obviously, now that I've primed it, it's a little bit of a pain in the keister. There's a lesson learned. But nothing stops the X-Acto knife. So I'm not trying to cut anything out, I'm just giving it a little push in here and there. Maybe put it where people can see it. Struggle is real. That guy over. Just by poking and poking, get a little bit of crackiness to it. Anyway, that's just to sort of show how I was doing it before. Now, these guys are going to get a wash. A wash. I think this brush is probably decent shape. Let's get some more of that Xandri dust off of it. Happy Halloween, Spooky Town. That's one of my favorite parts in Fallout is when you run into a super mutant who's somewhat resisted the total craziness of it, who's a bit more civilized, and it comes up in almost every Fallout game. Has at least one super mutant that's like amiable, kind, even. Mutations on mutations. All right, I need a black wash. Where is it? Where is it? There we go. And I just need a little, couple drops of it. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. We're going to see how this works. Scoot you guys over. All right. That is pretty dark, so I'm going to thin it out. Don't want it to pile up. There we go. That wash will settle in where I need it to settle in. Just keep going over all the bits. It's just going to add a bunch of texture there. Not too shabby. And yes, I still have to do the edges of these guys, but we'll get there when we get there. I don't think I'm going to be placing these guys in the scene just yet. I am morbidly curious, because I do have this stuff and I've never used it. I have a gray wash. Yeah, that's kind of the sad thing about super mutants. It's like, man, if they were helpful, if they weren't just mostly bent on eating all of humanity or converting them into super mutants, like, man, those guys are perfectly suited to live in a post-apocalyptic world of bad times. All right, this wash is weird. This gray wash is definitely odd, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it. On this side. Oh, it is a wash. It's a little thick. That's interesting, though. Does it need to be thinned out at all? Maybe it does. Like, from a pigmenty perspective, it's pretty neat. Alright, well, we'll just let that guy sit. Ponder. Our one gray wash experiment. Certainly useful. Maybe the most interesting part is you could probably mix your black and your gray together and get a whole spectrum of color. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And fortify my black with a little gray. Now bear in mind, some of these are not going to be, like this side, it's not facing out on the diorama. So I'm not really too worried about how textured it is. Wash, just to get it weathered looking. And then obviously there will be a step where I've got to try to do some inscription. A bit more black, a little bit more gray. Yeah, I could do a nice charcoal color. Pretty nice. Look at, oh, that's so much good texture. You sit in your little corner. All right, I am officially sold on this gray wash, specifically just because you can put it on your palette next to your black wash and ease back from all that super dark just as you need it, and just kind of mix as you go, which is fun. Right here on this crack, I'm just going to hit that with some straight black. Then elsewhere, I don't want it to look super dark. I can mix a little bit more of that gray wash with it. Just kind of work as I go. There we go. There we go. Tombstones galore. Those cracks. So many fiddly bits to paint. We're in pretty good shape. I'm going to stand up and check on the thing that I've got under a fan in just a second. There we go. Nice heavy gray wash. But, let's see here. Give my hand a quick wipe to make sure I don't completely undo the work that I've done. The next step will be these mushrooms. They've got their base coat on them. Now they're going to get some washes on them to brighten them up, give them a little bit of color, like a tiny little dab of wash here and there. And I think these guys are probably dry enough. I think I'll hit those white flowers with just a tiny little bit of wash on the tips. Just frost the tips. Let me check over here on my other stuff. It is definitely drying faster in front of a fan, so that is a very good sign. A very, very good sign. So I've got some washes to shake up, and we'll see how they mix. Let's see, I got a red, a green, got a blue in here somewhere. Yep, I have blue also. Just stack them all up in my hand. I think I got some umber. Dark rust. Yeah, umber wash that I've never used. It's a nice thing about doing a diorama for the first time is you have all these tools that come in packages of stuff to use. You don't get to all of them when you are just doing Death Guard 24/7. Umber wash. All right. Put some green on my palette here. Pretty straightforward. Some red. Which red is really the clincher. This red wash does work. These are all Viejos. Blue. Alright, so the point of these mushrooms is just to add some color to an otherwise horribly grim sort of space. So I'm just going to pick and choose and dab a little bit of wash in each one. I'm just using it straight up. Just dabbing it in. Actually, I'm going to hit the whole thing. Yeah, there we go. Blur. Yeah, now look at how bright that is. You know, it's a Halloween scene, but a couple little clumps of bright, exciting color is going to go a long way. It doesn't take a lot. I probably shouldn't do it directly over the other mushrooms so that I spill on them. That would be dumb. Pro move is to be somewhat careful. No one's going to see under these, but I know it's there. All right, so right now, do that, and then switch to, I'm going to set that aside. It won't take a long time for that to dry out. Just going to set that aside for a second. The bases of them will get a little bit of umber wash. In fact, I should test that right now to see if my stupid theory works. Yeah, okay. So maybe more than one pass, but because it's got the yellow already on it, the stem does look like it belongs to the mushroom with an umber wash at the bottom, and then you can see how that sort of clumps up a little bit right there. You get a little bit of that yellow coming through. Now the bottom of the mushroom is going to be more earthy. Sweet. Alrighty, moment of truth. Good contrasting colors. This wash is just going to stick to all those little edges. Set him aside right there. I'll do the umber pass a little later on the rest of these, so I have a place to hang on to them from. All right, this guy is going to get. What is he going to get? Yeah, I can get him some red. Just get a little dab of red on there. Boop. Pretty mushrooms, pretty mushrooms. Give this guy some red. If you hit it right, it's just like makes the ribs pop. There you go, cutie. All the tiny things. All the tiny things. Brown one. Every mushroom is different. Colors, colors, colors. This guy with some green. I think I have, yeah, I've got Bloodshade. Let's try that on a couple of these guys. Give him a shake. Give him a little shake. This guy with it. As I was saying before, there's probably only going to be a couple little spots that there'll be clumps of mushrooms on, but oh yeah, it's bloody. I love it. It'll make all the difference in terms of how bright things pop in certain areas. Okay, let's try this guy. Nice, nice. And what else do we want to try? Well, we got our colors out. I'll try some Militarum green on one of these guys, and this is contrast, so I'm gonna be a little bit ginger with it. Oh yeah, it makes a nice ruddy looking dirty mushroom. All the way down there. There we go. So many mushrooms. Named a town after him. That is like primary sign of doing a good job in the Fallout universe. Is having a town named after you. So true. That's how you know you've made it. This guy's gonna get a proper red treatment. Alright, so I think what I still need is somebody needs Screamer Pink. Never have enough Screamer Pink. Basically thin this down to the point where it's practically speaking a wash. This guy can get, what are you getting? I'll get you a red wash. Oop. This guy will get a blue wash. Haven't used all that much of it. Yeah, it's interesting that we got to Fallout and Nuka-Cola from these mushrooms. Also, definitely Skyrim mushrooms, these crazy blue ones. Oh yeah, blue on yellow, grimy looking. It's like does not fit. Nice and otherworldly. Sad mushroom. There you go, buddy. I believe in you. Crazy looking mushroom. What else could I do? What else could I do? I could do some hex wraith on one of these guys. Be a nice head nod to all the other hex wraith that's going on in here. Boop. And this blue guy will get some as well. That is a great mushroom color. That is definitely, it glows. All right, so we've got a stack of mushrooms. These are in pretty good shape there. I'm going to take 5 to 10 minutes away and I will be back. I'm hoping maybe I will do a Fallout diorama. I've got concrete bits. Those go a long way. We'll see. If I enjoy this diorama, then there will probably be more. Anyway, I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm just going to take a quick break, and then I'll see if the diorama itself is dry enough to work with. And then we may actually start putting some gravestones in and plopping some things down. Back in a bit. brief intermission, and we're back. Now I get to scooch all this stuff out of the way. I'm going to leave these flowers white for now. Zoom out. Some space for stuff. All these guys. Can just scoot over there. All these props to throw in. I'm going to see if this thing's dry enough. Alright, well, first order of business. This guy is dry enough to dry brush. And now I got to figure out what I will dry brush him with. We'll start with Dawnstone. Sort of keep going with that stonework. And this should help sell the sort of stucco-iness of it. Once again, give this dry brush a little dab of water. Pat it out on my trusty paper towel. Get a little bit of, oh yeah, that's wet. Time for a new paper towel. Just gently give that a squeeze. Yeah, there we go. Now it's damp, but not wet. Damp brushing is really what we're doing here. Yeah, there we go. Maybe a bit more. There we go. This may not be light enough. Oh, yeah, it is. And I'm going to dry brush it with more than one color. These are pretty close. But this, as a base, just sort of give it a little bit more texture. And it'll definitely catch the edges. Pretty much all that we need to do. Make some of those parts that are raised stick out a little bit better. Blot that guy. Now it's super crenellated, so it is absolutely gobbling this stuff up. Blot, 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 blot. Get those edges. Get those edges. That's the back side. I'm not too worried about it. Front side, however, grab those edges as much as we can. All right. I just realized that I didn't even texture those front and back. Oops. Like, why is this not sticking the same way? And that's because you didn't do your whole job. So this dry brush stuck to, obviously, just fine. But I still have, because it was hard to handle, I've got the front and the back to do. So I'm going to do those right now. And I'll set that back to dry, and then I'll grab the whole diorama, and we'll work that. And the front is ultra important. The back, not as much. Once again, this is Astro Granite, which I'm absolutely going to buy some more of because it is sweet. And it's thick enough to hide any cracks or knife blade missteps. And as you can see from the sides, it ends up looking stucco-y, which is pretty rad. It's not just for basing anymore. I'm going to make sure that I get a decent amount in on that inner edge, because it looks supremely knife cut. And by getting some in there, it'll make it imperfect, give it some asymmetry so it doesn't look like it was 100% cut with a blade. Not too much. We don't want it to look super flat. So basically just scraping it on the edge there. That should probably do it for the front. I'll hit the back a little bit, but this can be a pretty light, smoothed out coat. I don't need to hit this with a ton. And then when I get back and actually dry brush it, I was like, why does it look like brush marks? It's because it's absolutely flat, homie. That's why. Masonry work. Masonry work. That's what we do on Halloween, is masonry work. All right, I can set this guy back down. Give this tool a little scrape off here so that not too much of that stuff sticks. Looking good. All right, look at that. It's a diorama that is stuck on there pretty good, which is nice. Once again, like, this guy's in there, but this is still, I mean, it's relatively dry now, but I'm not going to mess with this lake anymore until I've got a lot more stuff locked in. I need a brown, yeah. The next step is to build, I think I want to put some graves in, and I'll put the stones in last. Essentially, maybe mark these out while I'm rolling. It'll be like tombstone. At the very least, these guys will be here. Those aren't tombstones, these are plots. That's what I'm doing. I want these relatively evenly spaced. Evenly spaced, but not evenly built. I'm going to glop down some of those diorama effects, dark earth. I need a different tool for that. I need something a little bit more precise than my straight up spatula. Put this guy back where he belongs. This part is a little bit complicated. We're just going to power through it. I need to glop some down and get it mounded. These are going to be the burial sites. I'll just plop some of this Viejo stuff in. I need a decent amount. That's a lot. That's more than a decent amount, buddy. Need a decent amount to get elevation. So I'm just going to scooch it around so it hits the sort of edges of where I marked. Yeah, so there's going to be 3 here. I don't know if I'll do 3 back there, but then there'll be a couple other over this way, and I want to have them at a 90-degree angle to each other so that when I'm taking pictures, I've got a good mix of spots I can choose. One of the things I will test right now, that's a little tight for one guy to fit in between. That's pretty close. I think basically I want to make sure I have enough breathing room for these guys, but they don't need to be directly between these little tombey areas. All right, so as you can see, I've got, well, as you can see, there's some elevation there. And what I want to make sure that I do is get around it a little bit so that it isn't just the mound. Around it, it'll be a little flatter. And it doesn't, you don't want it to be completely filled in. You just want a little bit of dirtiness near it so that it creates a nice little, there we go. A little bit of extra texture around it, so it looks like maybe some foot traffic while they were digging. Smooth that out and see how many times I can do that without screwing it up. Two scoops is what it took for the first one, so I'm guessing it's what it takes for the second. This is where second shtick comes into play. I don't want to flick it. Oof. Maybe hold it close to the end there, buddy. All right, so now we're just smoothing this out as best we can. This is how I think it's going to work. And once again, just a little bit around it. So they're not new. That's the thing, you know. In case in the purpose of drama, having them look like this is inaccurate, but it stands out more. The other thing is I can still put some grass on them, but having them be a bit mounded makes them seem like they're somewhat shallow. But yes, these are definitely not accurate graves by any stretch. They're drama graves. These are the prototypical bought at Home Depot prop looking out in your front yard graves. All right, so with those sort of, smooth that out a little bit better. With those sort of in their place, I don't really need to draw out the other ones too much at all, really, because now I can sort of see the size that I'm working with. Probably there. More scoop of the good stuff. And now I'll just smooth that out. Dabs around it. Don't bump the thing while you're working on it, buddy. Here. And the temptation to fill this whole thing in is going to be high, but you got to remember how many different props we've got. And I'm starting to think that 8 total graves is probably going to be a little excessive now that I'm looking at the space. I've got trees to put in. I've got Necron warriors that need places to stand. I've got all kinds of things. And as much as this step is fun, I want to make sure that I don't like overdo it and then leave myself with no space for anything else. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe I can get 7 done. What I think I want to do is maybe offset and do the last 2 back here. I don't want it to all be perfectly overfilled. At the very least, I'll get this one back here. More glop, more glop. Let's go, shaky hands, McGee. Dip my finger in it. Alrighty. Go diorama. Show me what you got. Once again, a little bit padded around it. I think I'm going to stick with that. I can always add an additional one at some point, but I think I'm going to stick with what I've got here right now. Just leave that in the water. Get this brush nice and clean as well that I've had sitting in there. There you go. Continue sitting there. This shtick can go away. I am planning on still doing some amount of painting with things stuck on here. So don't freak out if you see some edges that are like, huh, you didn't get to that yet. Because I expect that I'll be getting in here with the brush quite a bit. Question is, do I want more of this dirt down for other things like trees and stuff? So I've got some big trees that can just be like fallen branch somewhere. So those take up a lot of space. But I was thinking, and I even popped these in a little bit, that like they might look better stood up. In which case it might make sense for me to saw this off. It might not. It might not matter. I should probably just glop this into a pile of dirt. Have that set it in. This one can sort of be, I think this one was here. Yeah, it was. Nice foreground tree. So I think I'll do that. I think I'm back to glopping. And that way the trees will be sort of, because they don't have a ton of roots, especially because like these are tree fall trees. Having them sit in a pile of dirt that I can then put some grass around. That red thing in the background. Red thing in the background of what? In the background of the shot of me? Yeah, one of my mouths is red. That is. I'll get that in a second once I'm done slurping this stuff down here. You're talking about the meat wagon. You talking about this thing? That's the meat wagon, if you're talking about that. And obviously there's a delay here, but no, that thing is, it's a plague burst crawler that's made out of steak. It's got magnets all over the place because I couldn't get it to finally stick down in my case. But if that's what you're talking about, yes, that red thing is the meat wagon, harbinger of the new plague known as the meat sweats. But let me know if you're talking about something else back there. All right, so tree stuck in with glop. Hopefully I don't have to nurse this thing for too long. Just smooth it up around it. Oh, tree, you better behave. You are precarious at best. All right, we'll put 2 trees in because that's risky business. And enough dirt around them to hold them in. Make them behave nicely. I mean, there's obviously the temptation to just paint this whole thing in dirt, but I'm not doing that. It's like a blatant supply and demand issue. Other big tree I put here. This guy, if I could find the hole that he was attempted to plunk in. Yeah, that's the meat wagon. That was one of my first moments of like, I'm gonna do something a little bit weird and touched and off cannon. Not off cannon. Death Guard should have a plague burst crawler that's made out of rotting meat. Alright. Slop some more of this in here to make sure this guy can stand. Sort of smooth some of these edges out. Smooth some of this top up a little bit. It's like frosting a cake. All right, scrape some of this. Back in the drink. So the thing is, like, this stuff hardens pretty well, and I glopped enough in. Main thing I was worried about is A, using a glue that wouldn't dry outside of the air. So obviously I'm rushing, like I rush everything. But B, I didn't want to accidentally use something that sort of melted things down a bit. So it's a tough call. Tough call. But yeah, I thought about it when I started, but this stuff dries hard, and I have absolutely set things into it. The other thing is that these are almost certainly going to get a layer of glue around them over the top, which will so that I can put some grass down around it, so it'll sort of also have it'll be sealed up. Whoop! As I bonk it over the top. All right, sip of tea. Have more tea. I'm out of tea. The pain. Not sure why I got rid of that glop, because I think I needed to put the tombstones in. And I think I am going to put the tombstones in right now, so that they'll set also. Once I have these trees and those tombs in, I can sort of move on to tweezer work of all the craziness of tiny things like mushrooms and plants. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Let's do it. So this is literally just going to be cement work. All right, so I'm going to take my tool, wipe it off. Yeah, I like things sturdy too, but this stuff really is like very much like cement. Very much so. All right, so we're just going to put a pretty thick coat of that on there. Then we are going to, do I dare? Do I grab my tweezers? Do I need my tweezers? Not sure I need them, but it might be for the best for me to grab them. Of course, if I can't find them, it doesn't really matter. There we go. Anyone who's doing diorama work is supposed to be using tweezers, so I will just play the role. Of course, I don't have enough hands to properly do this, but that's life. Just doing brickwork. This side here looks better. That side does. So one of the things I'm noticing is that my tweezers are a little sticky, which is not acceptable. Not acceptable at all. So get in here with my X-Acto. Whatever strange schmutz is on there, I need to scrape off completely because I need these tweezers to release as well as possible. Yeah, I hear you on using your hands. I'm just a little worried about getting a bunch of extra schmutz. I'll give it a shot. It did seem a little excessive. All right, this guy. Cement work on you. Mortar this guy up. I'm worried about my fingers touching the other work that I've done. Getting schmutz on them. But no, I think you're right. That's absolutely fine. Some more glop. The nice thing is, you know, the stuff setting really nice is good. It also gives a nice little edge of dirt around it. Get that tool out of your hand so you don't wipe it all over the place. Though it's not too big a deal if I get dirt on the dirt. This one's nice and broken. Schmutz you up. And then I'll take this tool on the other side and sort of edge around these guys, because right now they're just sort of scooched in. Build up a little bit more dirt around them. Last tombstone, last call. That guy's super flat. That guy's super textured. Super texture, you win this one. So just smooth some of that over. That guy down for a second. This guy's nice and cracked and corroded. I'll scooch him in there. There we go. Now, grab another paper towel. It's starting to look like a graveyard. Smush this stuff off of this side of this guy. Now use that side of the tool. Just get in here. It's a little tough to see this one. Where I need it, just add a little extra, smush things in up the side of these gravestones. Pardon me if my head's sticking in there, but that's just how that's going to be. hopefully without bonking them around too much. Get my spare stick. I do think I'm going to end up varnishing this whole thing at some point. Just give it a little bit, even more protection. Just sloop some on here so I've got easy access to it. And plop it in. Oh, this is precarious at best. Stick down and then just scooch it, precariously scooch it. This is gloppy enough. I just bumped that tree and now I'm scared. Now I'm really scared. Scrape. This is a quiet time. Everything's scary. I don't bonk anything too much. I need to choke up on this guy. That's part of my problem. Oof, I hit him again. He's still standing strong. Stay right there, tree. So when you push these guys down, they scoot out a bunch of glop around them. But you don't want to have people like built up high because it looks weird. I need to be able to stretch in here, but I don't want to bump everything around. Man, I am really not good at this. This is weird. It's good. It's good to be doing it. I'm having a blast. But, oof. Funny, you paint a bunch of models and you realize, oh, there's weird spaces that I can't get into and all this stuff. And this is like, how much work can I do before I hit diminishing returns and I start screwing my life up by doing it? Not my life, but start bumping into parts of the model that you don't want to. All right, so the grave sites look pretty good. They do look pretty good. I'm psyched about those. I could smooth them out a little bit more, but every time I touch them, it sort of like picks more stuff up. So I don't want to do that, even though I'm doing it. Yeah, that's enough messing with those. I need to now let this thing breathe and dry a bit. So I'm going to sign off for now. Because I've done enough precarious stuff. I want these trees to be set in. I want those gravestones to be set in. I want those graves to dry out. As I poke around this water, it is dry enough and the stuff's bound in it. It needs more layers of it, but as I said before, I'm going to do that much later. And I'm going to do them much thinner. But now that I have this fan set up over here, things will dry much quicker. So all in all, cool stuff. Anyway, thanks a bunch. We'll keep this going again sometime soon. I doubt it's going to be today because pretty soon I got to start prepping for actual Halloween. I hope everyone out there has a happy, safe Halloween, gets a lot of candy, has a good time, even if it's just chilling out in your own place and just enjoying Halloween for what it is. Watch a scary movie, eat some junk food, and we'll see you next time. Take care.